Morning, Chairperson and committee members. Thank you.
Morning, Chair. Morning, Chair.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning, Chair.
Yeah,
Good morning, Chair.
I do hope that everyone is fresh and have rested.
Recording in progress.
I know we've done our work, etc., but at least somewhere, somehow, we would have rested. Let me just start with, our normal procedure of the House rules, because we are doing our meeting virtually, that we keep our gadgets muted until such time when we have to take the platform and speak. Then we unmute our gadgets and then we engage. We raise our hands orderly, and the team from the committee, Comrade Disang, myself, we will then recognize your hands and give you an opportunity then to speak. Let me just formally start, Minister, by greeting yourself, Minister de Lille, our Deputy Minister, Minister Sochu, the delegation from the department led by DG Vele, the delegation from DBSA led by the chairperson of the board, Mr. David Makura, and all honorable members present in today's portfolio committee meeting. Let me just start with some opening remarks, and then we will go through the agenda and the adoption of the agenda. The meeting today has been convened to receive a status report and an update on the tourism infrastructure projects implemented by the Development Bank of South Africa as an implementing agent for the Department of Tourism. Monitoring of infrastructure delivery is one of the priorities of the 7th Parliament and was translated into the Oversight Priority Plan. So the Portfolio Committee on Tourism has been selected again in the 2026-27 financial year as one of the 10 committees that prioritize oversight over the implementation of infrastructure projects across the country. So we do this through conducting physical oversight visits to infrastructure projects or receiving briefings on projects on the ground, as we are doing today. Ideally, it would be impactful to always conduct physical oversight visits to monitor implementation and interact with all beneficiaries. However, the parliamentary program does not allow us to conduct oversight visits all the time. This is a matter that has been raised with the committee section of Parliament to prioritize physical oversight visits and allow the committees that implement the oversight priority plan to conduct proper oversight on infrastructure projects. I'm glad to report to the committee that we have been able to report positive results on the implementation of the oversight priority plan, as my office has always made sure that our quarterly programs, as the committee, contain both oversight visits and briefings on the implementation of infrastructure projects. We will continue to do so, as this is an important key performance area for the 7th Parliament and the 2026-27 annual performance plan for the institution. So in this regard, I would like to commend your dedication and sharp scrutiny on these matters, honorable members, and encourage you to conduct individual oversight work on the infrastructure projects implemented in your provinces and constituencies, as it is not always possible for us as a committee collectively to visit all the projects in all the provinces. Turning on the briefings before us today, as a committee, we note that the Memorandum of Understanding between the Department and DBSA has been extended to 31 March 2027. We also note that DBSA is reporting on 71 projects they have implemented since the inception of their relationship with the department as an implementing agent. These projects are at different stages of implementation, with others at practical completion, works completing, and final completion. In the meeting, the committee would like to get detailed progress report on the implementation of these projects, the milestones that have been achieved, and the challenges that they've experienced by DBSA in various projects. We also want to get detailed information on the mitigation measures that DBSA would have implemented to salvage some of the projects where contractors defaulted and where community challenges were experienced. We have noted with concern that in some projects, DBSA has done planning and designs, but that these projects will not proceed to implementation as they have been put on hold due to lack of budget from the department.
Oh, okay.
Honorable Dikgale, is it possible to mute yourself, please? On the intro of the meeting, I have asked all people on the platform to observe the house rules. In one of the previous meetings, our minister reported to this committee that a decision has been taken to stop implementing infrastructure projects in the subsequent financial years. Now, the committee would like to get clarity from DBSA and the minister whether the reasons for putting these projects on hold is purely where we had a lack of budget, or was it on policy decisions that were taken to stop implementing these community-based tourism infrastructure projects. Now, I would like to move to our next item on the agenda, which is apologies. Our committee secretary, Disang, will take us through the apologies. Disang?
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to Chair, the Minister, the members of the committee, and the delegation from DBSA in the Department of Tourism. Chair, for this particular meeting, Chair, I haven't received apologies from the members. Our members of the committee are present. And from the department, there is a full delegation led by the Minister. The Department of Tourism is led by the Minister, Minister Patricia de Lille, and Deputy Minister Mem Megusoju. And then the delegation of the department is led by Mr. Victor Vele, Ms. Jamila Chatia, the DDG for Destination Development, Ms. Lerato Matakala, who is the Chief Director for Working for Tourism, and the Director for Program Coordination is Mr. Xolani Dlamini. And then from the Development Bank of Southern Africa, we've got Mr. David Makura, who is the Chairperson of the board, Mr. Chweni Rampele, who is a Group Executive for Infrastructure Delivery Division. We've got Mr. Kroos Skuman, who is the Head of Infrastructure Delivery Division. We've got Ms. Swazi Maja, who is the Head of Business Development and Performance. We've got Mr. Max Mazikana, Program Manager for NDP. Mr. Sanele Zikubu is the Construction Project Manager. Mr. Charles Ngundu is this Senior Construction Project Manager. And then we've got the support staff of the Office of the Minister. The head of the Office of the Deputy Minister is Mr. Sibongile Mbotwe. And then Mr. Kubas Kutia from the PLO for the Minister. Ms. Jody N. Nikerk is the PLO, is also a PLO in the Minister's Office. Then we've got a PLO for the DM is Mr. Nhlanhla Xaba, and then Mr. Thabo Makhubedu, and Ms. Risoketwe Moloto are in the Office of the DG. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Disang, for taking us through the apologies as well as who is present in our meeting. Is it possible to flight the agenda for us, Disang? Thank you, Disang. Honorable members, there you see the agenda. There you have the agenda on the screen. I think with one amendment that after the deliberations by honorable members, we will then have the department or DBSA, sorry, the DBSA will come in after the deliberations and interact with questions posed. And then after that, we will have the closing remarks. As you'll see at 12:15, there's a consideration and adoption of draft third term program That would be in-house administration for the honorable members. And before then, we will release the ministers, deputy ministers, delegation from the department and the delegation of DBSA. That would be before 12:15. Can I see a mover for the adoption of the agenda?
Chair, I move.
Thank you, Honorable Moodley. Is there a seconder for Honorable Moodley?
Thank you, Chairperson. I second the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you, Honorable Stair. There we have our agenda adopted. Before we receive the briefing, we normally have a introductory remarks. We would like to give the Honorable Minister an opportunity to make some introductory remarks, then followed by your chairperson of the board of DBSA, who will also make some remarks. Honorable Minister, over to you.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, and greetings to all the members, and greetings to Deputy Minister, DG and the department delegation, Mr. Makura from DBSA. Thank you for joining us this morning. I want to once again thank the committee for convening this meeting today, for us to give report back on progress to you today. But before I start, Chairperson, I must just correct your last statement. It is not correct that the department don't have money for infrastructure, community infrastructure projects. Whoever shared that information with you is wrong. We have taken a conscious decision in the 7th administration. The norm in the Department of Tourism has been to use money of EPWP meant to create jobs for building assets, tourism assets. That led to us, Chairperson and honorable members, year after year after year, not achieving our targets with the money that we receive for EPWP. Be that as it may, we decided that we still need to continue to build new infrastructure. And therefore, in the medium-term development plan and in our APP, we had agreed as a department that we will now go and find funding from partnerships outside of the EPWP funding. We then agreed that we are going to review our agreement with DBSA, which we have done. Those projects that have not started yet, we had said that those projects will be packaged and it will be put as part of our tourism infrastructure investment drive to find the money for it. That's why we started in 2025. We'd already put to the market out there 8 bankable projects. We have not closed the pipeline, and we've called for new proposals from provinces, from cities, from municipalities. So it's not correct to say that it's because the department doesn't have the money. But today, briefings, Chairperson and members, reflects the 3 key core areas of work that are central to strengthening South Africa's tourism offering and ensuring that infrastructure investment directly supports economic growth, job creation, and community development. So we will first brief the committee and give you a comprehensive update from DBSA on the implementation of the tourism infrastructure projects across the country. Then we will also present the National Tourism Investment Pipeline, and which we continues to expand through 2025 and 2026. Because this pipeline is very important to identify high impact investment-ready projects. And then thirdly, we will brief the honourable members on the preparation for the South African Tourism Investment Summit that will take place on the 29th of September and 1st of October in Johannesburg. Because the summit is a flagship platform to match domestic and international investors with our tourism infrastructure projects, to deepen partnership, and also with the DFIs, with the Development Bank, with IDC, and position South Africa as a competitive destination for tourism investment. And then finally, we will also highlight the significant strengthening of our oversight of DBSA through our PSU, and also how we have continued to do a site visit. We've reviewed closeout reports, verifying compliances and tracking mitigation actions across all infrastructure sites. Then the technical expertise of the PSU is helping the department substantially to closely monitor performance gaps, accelerate handovers, and ensure that infrastructure delivery is fit for purpose and ready for operation. So, Chairperson, these presentations collectively demonstrate our commitment to accountability, to delivery, and improve project management. So I really look forward today to the guidance from the honourable members as we continue to do this work, and also any assistance that we can provide to the honourable members when you go and do your oversight work. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Minister. I think, Minister, we only had, when the agenda was flighted, we only have the presentation by DBSA for today. The issue of the investment summit, I saw that you touched on it. We've received a presentation, but as you'll see on our notice that we sent out, it did not form part of today's meeting. It will form part of next week's meeting.
Yes.
So we will interact with the investment summit next week, Tuesday, and not today.
My apology, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Minister. Mr. David Makhura will now give us some remarks before the team from DBSA will present. Mr. David Makhura, over to you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson, Ronalda Ademango, and Honourable members of the Portfolio Committee on Tourism. Greetings to you, Honourable Minister Patricia de Lille, and the Deputy Minister, Maggie Sochu, and the DG and the team from the department. I just wanted to add that in addition to the people you acknowledged, Chairperson, I am with the member of the board who chairs the board committee responsible for oversight on infrastructure, Dr. Maji. So he is joining us. His committee plays a very critical role in ensuring that from the board side, infrastructure is delivered to our full satisfaction, is governed well in accordance with our prescripts and standards to meet the expectations in this particular case of the Department of Tourism. I want to first table an apology for our CEO, Ms. Boitumelo Mosako. She is part of the SA Inc. delegation that is attending the energy conference in China. As you know, we have a huge energy portfolio in our investment portfolio. With energy is one of those key areas. Having said that, I should also add that our company secretary is joining us, Ms. Watobile, so as all the other officials you have acknowledged, chairperson. The DBSA, as you know, is a development finance institution that has a mandate for economic development. Our mandate is not just covering our country, but it extends into Southern Africa. That's the mandate, the legislative mandate we have. So, and for that reason, the bank is named the Development Bank of Southern Africa. Of course, we derive our mandate from the legislation and we report to Parliament. We oversee a number of infrastructure projects and deliver, in addition to financing infrastructure across the board. In this particular case, we're going to report on the tourism infrastructure. I must say, Minister, that we have worked very well with the Department of Tourism in the work you have assigned the DBSA to do, and this report today will tell a bit of that work. Our mandate is much broader, so we cover different aspects of infrastructure, energy, education, healthcare. Part of what we are doing now is also we're involved in the rebuilding of Parliament. But in our economic development mandate, tourism is certainly very, very significant. We know in today's economies across the world, tourism plays a very, very critical role. So the report from the DBSA will be delivered by the group executive responsible for infrastructure delivery. That is Mr. Chweni Rampele. He will present that report, but we, from our side as the board, the infrastructure is the delivery of infrastructure is budget sensitive and also timeline sensitive. If you can't deliver on time, it already impacts on your ability to deliver on budget. And there are many factors, as you would know, which impact on delivery on time. Delivery on time, there are many we have got to manage from our side. Once all the processes have been completed, the procurement processes, we also have to manage the communities around which this infrastructure is built. It's a very important aspect of the work that the DBSA has to do, because if you don't work well with the communities around which you are building this infrastructure, because the tourism infrastructure that the minister refers to very well, in a big sense, it is an infrastructure that our communities across the country use, showcase, and we bring tourists, fairly local tourists. So these communities must appreciate that infrastructure, look after it as well. And often, sometimes it gets vandalized, sometimes projects are delayed or stopped. So the management of that is extremely important. The other important thing is on the DBSA side, we have a big team and very capable team that manages our infrastructure portfolio. Having been at the DBSA not long, I know that this work of direct infrastructure delivery is new, and the DBSA has been investing technical capabilities in the team. that the projects that we are delivering as infrastructure projects, we need to do so backed by sufficient technical support and capability. The bank historically has had expertise in investment, development finance, investment financing is the bread and butter of the bank. But actual infrastructure delivery is something we only started to do later. So this work, Minister and Honorable Chair, the work we've been doing with the Department of Tourism on upgrading, improving, and in some instances, just starting fresh infrastructure, tourism infrastructure projects in areas where there's very little economic activity is also very important and impactful from a development point of view. So that our board does its governance and oversight work. That's what the board does. We do oversight, management reports and accounts on the targets we set. And I want to assure you also, whenever one project is not delivered, when we do our tracking, we get the team to account. We get the CEO and his management team to account, and we put lots of pressure on them. We are looking forward to hearing from you as Parliament, an important institution in our country to which we account. And the minister would confirm with the deputy minister, they whip up a lot. They whip us a lot when they see delays in infrastructure delivery. And you can also we can also confirm we put a lot of pressure on payment, because from our side, payment is what we push when we have done work. But we have worked very well with the department, and we also will continue to want to account to Parliament and want to work very, very well with the Portfolio Committee. You hold us accountable. We are glad to be held accountable by you. Thank you so much, Chair. For me, it was my first meeting with the tourism portfolio, so you can take my remarks in that light. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Makura, for your remarks that you've made. You've already given us the presenter by the I think, Mr. Makura, I've written down the name. It's Chueni, Mr. Chueni Rampele. Yes. I was just looking now in my notes. Who did I write down? Yes, Mr. Chueni Rampele. Over to you. Thank you so much for doing the presentation for us.
Okay. No, thank you so much, Chair. We really appreciate it. And then thank you so much, and all protocol observed. I'll take you through the presentation in terms of what we want to present to the committee today. Obviously, it's not the first time, but the approach we took was also to gradually take you through the terminology that we normally use in this built environment, because we always come up with terminology. We always talk abbreviations that at some point we then start to lose our audience. So at this point on this slide, it is just to indicate, as to say, when we say down the line and talk of closeout report, what would that mean? That is basically when I'm saying, when you say COR in the reports, it means the closeout report, and then and that's just indicating the kind of list and closeout of terms. We also thought it's important today to also then just take it through just the workflow in terms of what this terminology means. Somewhere down the line, I'll be talking about practical completion. So which I think as we engage contractors on the work in the built environment, we use the contract that we call Joint Building Contracts Committee. We normally call it JBCC, and that is the contract that we sign. So it just got particular kind of terminology they use. So in the body, as I'll be presenting to you, when I talk of practical completion, I just mean that the construction has taken place, then that this particular facility now is ready for use and can be occupied. So that is basically what we call practical completion, is that all of the milestones has been achieved and is practically complete, and that it can really be used, while we are also observing the 90 days defect liability, just to see where are the leakages or where the, this is the roof in good condition or is proper, so that we just look at what we call the snags. It's just more trying to deal with the snags. So that is what the practical completion would definitely mean. And the works completion is basically that after the practical completion, what we do normally is to go back again and start, the contractor to fix all of the necessary things here and that, maybe when the plug is not necessarily working, and then they're able to then be in a position to fix that. And that is the period that we then call the works completion. So by itself, at the practical completion, you will get what you call practical completion certificate, which shows that now this can be occupied. And basically, then when works completion is done, there's also what we call a works completion certificate, which then means that the contractor has now particularly finished the snags that we've given. And then we then have the final completion, which basically is just to then say, now finally we are done. And then what needs to be done is that now the employer, or rather the owner of the asset, then can really be in a position to sign off and say, I'm happy the project has reached, has basically met my expectations, both from the design and the quality part. So that is basically the most critical, those are the most critical stages. As I'll be talking, we'll be talking FC, which means final completion, WC, works completion, practical completion, PC. So now, on the other side, we thought it's important just to articulate the National Treasury framework for infrastructure delivery procurement management, because it is the framework within which we manage this project. So that's why we'll then why we're putting this is also down the line, you'll then start realizing the importance of this particular part, because then when the project is been given, we then take it through the initiation stage. That's the needs assessment part, where we really are determining, beginning to look at how then we can come up with the concept and design. And then we then have the stage 2. So particularly in the spaces, we've got 7 stages. So 1 is initiation, 2 concept, and then in the concept is when we're really then beginning to play with the design, interacting with the end user to see as to whether this project, in terms of what they are envisaging, taking the input into place. And then that's when we start dealing with the technical solution in that regard. Then we get into the design development. The design development stage is where we're then beginning to start looking at the drawings, defining the criteria, and then beginning to ensure that we start to look at matching the costing with what has been designed. And that is basically the stage which we call normally stage 3. So normally in this, people will talk about stage 3 and stage 4 is what we call design documentation. In the design documentation stage is when we then start packaging everything together and sizing and positioning all of the systems on the components for the construction now. And that's when we then start also putting documents together for going out on tender. That is basically the stage 4. That's why some of the projects that we've spoken about that are in planning, we're taking them from stage 1 up until stage 4. In this stage 4, normally we even have 2 stages. The first one, the stage 4A, which basically is just getting all of the design documents, and the stage 4B, basically we're going to talk about the procurement. Now you're going out on tender for that method. So this project that we've been talking about, the planning ones, the planning part, we talk about stage 1 up until stage 4. It is just that orientation that I wanted to give to members. And then on stage 5, it is the real works where you then start, that's the construction part. So when we refer to projects in construction, those projects just know they will be in stage 5. And stage 6 is basically the stage 6 is when we are then starting to deal with those stages that I talked about, which is basically your works completion, your final completion. And once that package is done, that documentation then necessitates what we then call the handover, where we then have to be doing the training, putting the records, matching the record together, looking at the audit trail for that. And then the stage 7 is when we close out, where we're saying all of the certificates packaged together, the practical completion, the final completion, as well as the closeout report, then that is ready. Then the project is ready for transfer to the owners as it was been done. That's what we call Section 42 of the PFMA. So that is just defining it that way, that every project needs to go through these stages to an extent that now this project needs to get out of the realm of the Department of Tourism into those that into the owners. Who's the owners? We're talking of the communities that this infrastructure has been built for. Now, Chair, you talked about the memorandum of agreement. This is just particularly, yes, indeed confirming that we particularly then have signed the agreement up until March 2027. And then obviously it was extended at that point in time to just look at the continuation of these projects. Again, when we look at the extension, we must always look at it from those, it's not looked at from a practical completion point of view. It's both look at the whole entire cycle and to then say it needs to be still within the agreement that we then hand over these projects over to the beneficiaries. So now on this slide, Chair, I just want to then indicate, just to remind the committee on the scope and how this particular kind of cluster has happened. So out of that 71, if you look at the work packages, we had a number of work packages as we look at them. It is those that have compliant community tourism projects and some local community museums. So the Indo-Atlantic routes. So you'll see all of that as we call them packages. Then in the thread of the provinces, you will then realize that in the whole entire 71, then we had 14 that accounted for in the Eastern Cape. We had 7 in the Free State. Maybe in this case, maybe let me just also take this package together. So on the Eastern Cape, we had 14 projects, and then we practically completed 10. So that at least we can relate. So that particular table, I'm just trying to relate to then indicate, to then say what is in the progress so far. So in terms of the Eastern Cape, out of 71, the allocation was 14, and then out of that 14, we completed 10. So in the Free State, we had 7, the whole 7 practically complete. In Gauteng, there was only 1 project which has been completed. KZN, we had 6 and only 2 practically complete. And then in Limpopo, we had about 16 with only 15 completed. And then in Mpumalanga, we had 6 projects, 5 completed, and then practically complete. And then in Northern Cape, we had about 8, and then 5 practically completed. And in Northwest, we had 7, 3 practically completed. In the Western Cape, we had 6 completed. So if you look at the last column, members, you will then see that out of the 71, 54 projects have been completed, and you'll see the pictures, the pictorial evidence that we gave on the other side. So that is just particularly giving a sense of the portfolio in totality and what has been achieved. So now in the next slide, I'm just going to show you in terms of the geographic spread, but also just more important is to indicate as to out of that 71, because you can see some have been practically complete, others, then you may be wondering where's the balance of that. So if you take those ones that are in under the, if you see that highlight on the construction, so we have got 3 in construction at this point in time. So, but if you look at just the line from practical completion to the closeout, that will then give you the 54 that I spoke about. So the 54 would be that 6, 5, 11, 2, and 30. So that would be what we've achieved in terms of practical completion and then other stages that follows. So now let me go back to the point of those that are in planning, because that number and those ones up, they make that 71 as I was trying to demonstrate. So the projects that are in planning are 12, and the ones that one out of that planning that is proceeding is 1, and there was 1 that was cancelled, and that one has been cancelled. So now we will be talking about 70. So the 3 is in construction at this point in time. So that is just showing the overview of the portfolio. Then we're sitting at 71. We were sitting at 71 as the allocation, but technically now we're sitting with 70 of the projects that are active. Yeah. Now, let me indicate from just the beginning of this project, just to see what we've achieved since 2020, 2021. So, and that is just particularly looking at the expenditure and in relation to that 54 project that we've achieved. So far, in terms of what the expenditure was. We spent only 885 million out of the 1 billion 0.91 of the total value of the projects that are under construction, that were under construction. As I said, 54 out of that 71 has been completed. And then we've got then closeout reports. The projects that closed out, we've got 30 of them that have basically closed out. So in the whole entire portfolio, we have managed to then create, from an employment point of view, 1,376 jobs. And then the kind of number of the beneficiaries with regards to SMMEs, we had registered about 299 of those of the SMMEs. So on the right, I was just explaining the same issue, but it's just showing you exactly to then say, since that particular period, that 54 projects have attracted an expenditure of 885, and then out of the 1.91 billion of the thing. So the SMME's contribution, as I said, it was around 299. So the graph underneath is just explaining exactly how we got to that 885. But then we also touch on the development outputs that we looked at. So and I'm dissecting this from the 2021, 25, 26 financial year, and also just beginning to look at the current financial year that we're on now in our attempt to then complete this. So that 1,268 has spoken about a number of opportunities, of employment opportunities. We can see we're then accounting for about 514. And then in terms of the men, we're just trying to then look at the demographics. And then we also then had women working on the project, so 177. And then that again, we then dissected it in looking at the number of the youth in totality. Then we had about 726. And then in terms of that 726, we had male youth 366, and then female youth 205. We also then have registered the people with disability at about 6. So in total, it's basically that 1,268. So in the 2026-27 financial year, which is particularly this financial year, we were targeting to look at we are targeting to reach about 226 with those projects that are in construction and the completion of the ones that really are at the works completion. So we're looking at now currently, as we registered, we have already reached 108 of the jobs registered in that regard in relation to the 2026-2027 financial year. So again, we then break it down in terms of 36 male, 11 women employees at that point, and in terms of the youth on the current, which is basically the 60, and then 42 being male, 18 being the female. So at this stage, we haven't really gotten to register any on the disability. So that is basically the explanation. The report around the development outputs as we're tracking the transformation areas. Now, on the 26-27 financial year, the total budget we are dealing with this financial year is 133.4 million. If you look at back from what I related, we spent 885 up to that particular point. But for this financial year, with the project that are in construction and the closeout that we need to pay, we are chasing 133.4 million. And the table before under the graph there, it makes it easier to just explain it to how that 133 is been targeted for expenditure. So that's why we're looking at Q1 spending about 25.1, Q2 47, Q3 43, Q4 16.9, and that makes that 133,446. So now we are also tracking that expenditure, obviously, as Machair has indicated. So the progress has got a relationship with expenditure. And for Q1, we particularly achieved 15.3. And then in Q2, which is basically the quarter that we're really in, we're looking at, we're still at registering 4.3, which is basically from July to September. We have mechanisms in place to then recover from the 10 million deficit of the previous quarter, which is Q1 from April to June. So, and we've got factors that I'll relate that in the next slide. But so far, from the 133, the expenditure is sitting at 19.7 million of the total expenditure to that effect. So obviously, for the next quarter, we should really then be in a position to be sitting around 60-something million. Let me then indicate the reasons for that and expenditure, as we said. is that we have zoomed in terms of the various projects that we're particularly dealing with and beginning to want to relate as to what is the reason to that effect and what we are doing. I think that's where we're basically focusing to try and bolster the progress and bolster the expenditure. So if you look at the projects the project column there, it's just showing you which are those particular projects that we've particularly found an underspending. That's why the current project, which is in construction, which is basically the Bloemfontein in the Northern Cape, we were hoping to be spending about 5.1, and then we ended up spending 5.9. So that is particularly beginning to indicate to you in terms of the previous slide that I've put to then say, where did that particular kind of the under spending come from? But I think from our side, we've also identified the correct reasons as to why we're where we are and what interventions needs to really be put in place. So, Chair, at this point, I think it's important to also relate to then say, obviously in construction, you always have a number of issues because it's more contractors' performance, it's more the professional service performance, it's more the community engagements that needs to really be done because we always from our side, value the social facilitation component to make sure that at least, even if you delay, it must be that the community is satisfied that we are addressing their issues at that point in time. That's why sometimes when we were hoping to be handing over the site on a particular date, if issues are not really being settled with the communities, we often prefer that we don't do that up until we are on the same page, because people are interested in knowing how you're going to be doing employment. People are interested in how we as SMMEs are going to participate. People are interested in terms of what value is this thing bringing to the communities. And that's a continuous process in particular. So on this slide, we're just indicating what we have put in place in terms of also dealing with the recovery measures. In some cases, we will find that, on the projects like LPOs, it's more like, it's the delays. It's not in the project is practically complete, but the final completion is delaying, obviously, because of some of issues that relates to the discoveries that we found at some point that the water that we've put, the water reticulation system is not so powerful to then can push water to all of the area that we wanted the water to go to. And also the issues was also the electrical power trippings that were there. So in particular, I'm trying to indicate then say each and everyone has got his own peculiar reasons, but in some cases, it's more the contractor's performance. As you look at areas like Ngove, it's a poor performance. And in that regard, we take quick action in ensuring that that particular contractor is either then being released from the project, because the point is we really need to then finish this particular project. In some cases, we understand very well the cash flow issues that contractors are experiencing, especially at that stage, because there's no longer much of the money. It's more now for you to go and fix some snacks. We find them really staggering to go and address those particular kind of snacks. But we have a very clear plan in terms of when this projects needs to really be then concluded, irrespective of whether that contractor is performing or not performing. Because in some cases we then bring other performing contractors to come and complete that particular work. So in essence, it's just indicating to you some of the reasons for that and expenditure, but just to give the committee an assurance that we are on top of understanding as to why we are where we are, and then also what measures we're putting in place. Like one of the areas that I just want to highlight is in the ecotourism development, that the issue of the Eskom upgrade on the transformers. It's one of the issues, and it affects us across all the areas. Whether we are in education, we find that in some cases, for the Eskom to come, it takes quite a long time for us to engage. But we do engage and escalate it to them and put pressure on them to ensure that they really come and assist us with the upgrading of the electricity, so that at least we can then ensure that the whole entire thing is functional. So that is just, again, I think on the slide, the objective is just to indicate to the committee that we really have identified what reasons are there, and we're very clear as to when we really would want to then complete this thing as plans are in place, and then the monitoring of this process is taking place. So again, this next slide is just indicating to you what reasons have we identified on each and every one of those that we have identified the understanding. So I don't need to really maybe focus on this, but we have clear plans, recovery plans together with the department. We meet often to really be in a position to ensure that this happens. Now, let me touch on the progress on the current project activities that we're really doing. And this particularly is more demarcated in terms of this, the issues that I've spoken about in terms of projects that are on hold and the projects that are particularly in planning. So these are mostly the projects that are in planning. Like as the minister has indicated, it is not that, that's what we thought the idea was, let's put them up until to the planning part, and then we'll go and look for particular budget for those to happen. So the on hold is not the on hold on planning, it's the on hold in terms of the stages, as I said, stage 4, stage 5 area, stage 5, which is basically the works part. So we just are pushing them to the point of the planning. So these are all the names of those that are really on that on hold. And we're just indicating as to what has happened. We are taking them through for drawings approval, municipal approvals, and then we do all of those sort of things that they just become ready. It's just technically ready. That at any point in time when we then go to the point of the next phases, then the department is able to then say, no, this one is implementation ready, and then here is the budget allocated in accordance with what has been worked out. And that's basically just explaining all of these particular projects. And even in the next slide, it's just showing you the slide to then say, is your Mafeking Hotel Schools, your Bilan Nature Reserves, those are the ones. But the work that we are doing is basically the issue of taking them to planning up until stage 4, as I explained before. So now, the one that in terms of those that are also still in planning, we then got to deal with the credit 4. The credit 4 is also particularly in the initiation part of it. As I'm saying, it's also part of the planning. So we'll also take it to that level of the approvals and make sure that it is complete, and that we got all the municipal approvals, and then we can decide as to how we really are able to proceed. So it is still at the initial planning of the process. Now, there are 5 projects that are at works completion, as I indicated earlier on. Then say they've reached practical completion. Now we're advancing them towards the closeout reports. So these are more the projects that are majority is in Limpopo. And then there's just one in the KZN, which is basically the Anton Mbeda Museum. So, and if you look at what we have found out there, Chair, as you said, what are the kind of challenges that we're really getting to not be in a position to move faster on those areas, is that if you look at the Mapate one, it's more the contractor that we had to terminate because he was failing to really be in a position to go back to the site. Because one tendency that we need to indicate is that in the construction sector, contractors, once they start to get into these stages, they start realizing that there's not much money, and they start diverting resources to other new projects, and which is what we are then containing now. Then say you need to complete the project. You can't then, because there's not much of the money now, you don't complete. So that's where we're becoming very hard ourselves as the DBSA to then say, if people are really behaving that way, we even get to the point of debarring them, because then it becomes a tendency that infectious to government projects, whereby people then know that now I had 100 million, now I've already spent 95 million. There's only 5 million left. They must see how to finish. So we're dealing with that particular kind of an attitude, and we're dealing with it very drastically. So that's why you see some terminated, and somebody can say, why do you terminate a person at the final completion? Yes, because if it doesn't then finally complete, we'll have to really ensure that we complete this project, and we'll utilize that budget that was supposed to go to really be in a position to complete this. But those ones, they know from our side, we're very clear in terms of our consequence management to then say, we'll take it to our department, we debar you, and then we also then report it to the National Treasury side. And I think this is just more trying to explain the 5 projects in particular. Now, the other projects that are in final completion, as I explained the stage, this is the number of projects that are there. So you look at, there are about 11. So I think the teams are currently finalizing the reviewing and doing all of these sort of areas to just make sure that the review is complete, and then the projects closeout reports are in order. and then auditable, and then we then can really be in a position to then transfer these properties. So this is the continuation of the 11. So there are also some of those that we need to also indicate, maybe just this one, Mdluli Safari Lodge, the Numbi Gate. So remember, these are community projects. There are also disputes that are emanating between the end users themselves. There are some court interdicts that really are taking place that we're trying by all means. I know that Deputy Minister has been trying to resolve some of those. So we are on that particular part to then try and resolve some of those issues, and those will be delaying some of the final completions, but we are on them. So let me first check and also then this is just more, I don't need to really spend much more time on this. It's just that 30 I've spoken about that has already been done. They're on a closeout. Then the dates are very clear. So it's a question of, closeout reports having to be signed off, and then we then hand over to some have been handed over already, but it's just more the handover. This is a continuation, Chair. And then again, is the 30s, that's the table 3 of the 4 tables that are already articulated, because that's the 30. So I don't need to really be in a position to get too much into that. And again, there are the 3 projects that are in construction that I've talked about. These are the 3 projects. It's Platfontein, it's Manyane Lodge, it's Muzipen. So these ones were very clear to then say from our part of is to then, like for example, in terms of the Platfontein, we just started not so long, because as I said, it was in planning. So we're intending to finish it in March 2027. We intended to finish Manyane Lodge in November 2026. We're also looking at Muzipen being completed in 2027 from a practical completion point of view. So we've mapped up the process very well, and then we were very clear as to this point in time to say, the projects are going quite well. So we think we'll definitely achieve them on the time that has been planned for. So those are the 3. So again, there is also, some of the issues that have affected progress in terms of the closeout. Don't need to really put much, but as I said, it is quite a number of issues. Some is the water user license, some is the ESCOM, some is basically realizing that we need to then add some additional scope to then get it to then be functional. And those are some of the challenges and reasons that we provided. But as I said, the most important thing is that we have put our eyes on in making sure that this particular kind of projects we resolve these issues and get them sorted out. In some cases, the issue of the furniture, if you look at this particular slide. And again, this is just more summarizing the challenges that I've spoken about in that regard. But the main thing here, it was to ensure that these facilities are fully functional. In some cases, at that time of planning, you start realizing that now these facilities, you want that when you hand it over, it's fully functional. There's furniture, there is water running, there is electricity, reliability thereof, and that is basically some of those particular kind of things that we've been striving to do in that regard. In conclusion, Chair, we have the Executive Management Steering Committee that is chaired by the Director General and our co-chair that with the DG himself to also look at ensuring that there is a proper oversight and guidance to the project team. And in addition, I think the Minister has spoken about the PSU. We have got the PSU that is within the department itself that reinforces the approach in terms of ensuring that we achieve all of these targets that we're looking at. And this is basically a collaboration and working together of teams, especially in this area, the PSU, the DBSA team, as well as the departmental staff in that regard. So again, I want to emphasize that for projects that has experienced delays, the project team have developed individual project recovery plans, which we are really dealing with, and then we are really resolute to conclude and close out this particular program. And then again, both the department and ourselves remain committed to the successful finalization of these projects, and as well as ensuring that with regards to the capacity addition of the PSU, we are able to then be in a position to proceed to the conclusion of that. So, Chair, on the other side, it's just to show you some of the pictures, and I think you have seen them in some cases in terms of the presentation I've sent, just showing the Mthunzi Lodge, the Manzila Lodge, the Anton Lambert Museum, so those are some of the pictures that we wanted to then be in a position to get. Chair, let me hand over back to yourself and let Makura to just
Back to you, Chair. Thank you very much. That's our report.
Thank you, Mr. Makura, and thank you, Mr. Rampele. We'll go now to our next item on the agenda, which is the deliberations, where I'll be giving honorable members an opportunity to engage with the report, pose questions, seek clarities. Disang, please assist in terms of hands.
Sure, Chair. The hands as per the screen is Honorable Maejo, Honorable Moodley, Honorable Ishmael, Honorable Thongo, Honorable Lekharaba, Honorable Linde, Honorable Buthelezi, yeah, those are the hands that are up. I'm not sure if Honorable Mashabela wants to say anything.
My hand is up.
Is your hand up, ma'am? Okay, then you'll be the last one, ma'am. It doesn't show on my side. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Disang. I was just now, I was laughing because I don't know what is wrong with Honorable Mashabela's gadget, but she has been struggling with her putting up of her hand. And I think she should go and speak to the technical team at Parliament to assist her with Zoom, because also on my side, I'm unable to see a hand, but because we know that she always has a challenge, we would always ask whether she would like to participate as well. Honorable Maecho, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to the Minister, the Deputy Minister, as well as the DG Vele, and greetings to Ntate Makura and the delegation of DBSA. Chair, let me just echo your sentiments in terms of your opening remark with regard to the projects which were subsequently reported by the department that the project in terms of our 2026-2027 financial year had to be stopped due to the financial issues. Now, Chair, I want to echo your sentiment that it was reported and it was on record, and I'm on record as well, supporting your sentiments, that the department reported to the committee in our previous briefings that there was a decision that has been made to stop implementing infrastructure projects subsequent to the ones being implemented in the financial year that I've just mentioned, 2026 and 2027. And Chair, this raises a concern, and it implies that the department in this regard will no longer be implementing pro-poor community-based tourism infrastructure projects. Equally, this decision, Chair, is contrary to the transformation imperatives in the sector and the committee priorities, because we have priorities as the 7th Parliament. As the committee chair, we want to urge the minister, while the minister is here, we're urging you, minister, to reconsider this decision, as it will further entrench tourism development in major tourism hubs, and it will also stifle development in villages, townships, small towns, and dorpies. Now, without repeating what you have said, Chair, I think that I had to support that particular opening remark that you did. And then moving to the questions that I've perused the presentation. The question I would want to pose to Ntate Chweni and the delegation from the DBSA, how far has the department and the Development Bank of South Africa gone in establishing and capacitating the tourism infrastructure unit within the department as per stipulation of the Memorandum of Understanding? And also, the second question is that why has the minister decided to terminate implementation of projects in which designs and planning have already been made? Now, does the minister consider terminating infrastructure projects as a good policy direction in relation to tourism development in previously marginalized communities? And then this one will go straight to the DBSA as well, given the remaining timeframes of the extended MOU, because I see in the presentation that the extended MOU is extended until the 31st of March 2027. Now, given the remaining timeframes of the extended MOU with the department, can the DBSA assure that the committee, that all the contracted work will be finished and all projects will have reached the final completion stage? And when we say final completion stage, I think that the terminology of project management, it says that we must equally have the close-out reports, because in the presentation I've been listening that Chweni mentioning practical completion. That doesn't mean that when the project is on the practical completion, it's fully completed. Because the project must be fully completed when we are also doing a closeout report and hand over a project to the project owner, which will be in this case the department. And the last two questions, Chair, if permitted, we will also request to come back if time permits. But the last two questions is that on the 3 projects that are still under construction, is the DBSA confident that all the work shall be completed by 31st March 2027, and that these projects will be at the final completion stage? The last question will be, of the 6 projects that have reached practical completion, are there any issues with contractors to attend the snack work, and that may be outstanding, including if there is a need that there could be an addendum to be reviewed? Please tell us so that we are able to understand exactly what the work that the DBSA is doing. Chair, thank you for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Maecho. Honorable Mutli.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, Deputy Minister, and all those people from DBSA. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was a nice presentation. It would be nice if they can do this every quarterly. At one time, I remember the honorable members weren't happy with the way DBSA was doing the work. And this is where it begs to answer the question where the minister has chosen them and given a contract till March next year. Now, we've spoken to the minister at one time. You know, she has a right to do this. She is the executive. I understand that. But we said to her that day, please take us in your confidence. You don't have to listen to us. Just tell us, listen, we're extending the contract for DBSA, which we never said. It's the first time I'm hearing that today. Now, Chair, at your opening remarks, you've done a damn good job saying exactly what was wrong. Now, I don't want to repeat that. And also, Honorable Mates also said the same thing. Now, at one time, we were never happy with DBSA. And suddenly today, we see that the contract has been extended, which I don't have a problem with. I actually like the presentation, by the way. But I'm also happy that there's 7 projects or 6 projects being done in KZN. Now, we're hearing about it today. Why can't we go on oversight visit? I want to know why we're not going to see what's being done in my backyard. Oh, you understand? So, these people must come and give us a presentation every 3 months so we know exactly what they're doing and where they're going with the tourism in South Africa. But I really like the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Motley. Honorable Ishmael.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to the ministers and everybody on the platform. I just have a few questions, but before I get there, Chair, just on your remark in the beginning, I wonder, maybe, Minister, you will be able to advise, but I'm just thinking, if I'm thinking back now, with regard to the stopping of infrastructure projects, I'm just trying to, remember it in context. If I remember well, I think the minister advised that they will not continue with some infrastructure projects until a proper, financial feasibility study is going to be taking place before those projects plans can be, or, those projects can actually go forward. I'm not sure if this is the confusion, but I'm thinking that is it, because I remember asking the questions with regard to, projects that were planned a while ago, and obviously now things have changed. And I remember asking about, feasibility studies. So I'm thinking it's possible that that was the response from the minister. But anyway, my questions today to DBSA, I just have a few questions. Now, I'm looking at return on investment. Of the 30 closed facilities, can you possibly give us, some feedback on how many beds, how many tourists, and how much revenue have they generated to date? Provide, sorry, Chair, I think somebody is speaking.
Sorry,
while I'm speaking.
Honorable Ishmael. Honorable Motley. Is it possible to close your mic, please?
Thank you, Chair. Much appreciated. I'll just go back. So looking at return on investment, of the 30 closed facilities, how many beds, how many tourists, and how much revenue have they generated to date? Can you possibly provide, some a report or some proof on this return on investment for the, from the fiscus, not just infrastructure spend? I'm trying to see what we're getting out of these projects so that we can actually see it's working tourism, Second is looking at job targets. Your target was 226 jobs. But according to the presentation that I read, you've achieved 108. That would mean around 47%. Now, with only 3 projects left in construction, how will you meet the target of 226 jobs? Can you maybe provide a breakdown by province, youth, women, and PWD, specifically for Limpopo province? And I'm looking at the projects Tisane and Matiti projects. And then again, I'm trying to measure SMME and community benefit. From what I could read on the presentation, I was trying to understand it from when you were speaking now, the presenter was speaking now, but I read only 8 SMMEs benefited this financial year versus 299 cumulatively, right? So for Tisane Cultural and Matiti Game Farm specifically, what percentage of spend went to Limpopo province, the local Limpopo province? When you look at SMMEs, like what ownership, revenue share, and skills transfer model is in place, post handover? I'm trying to see what community benefit is actually being handed over. What are our local communities actually benefiting from here? And then looking at sustainable jobs, 885 million rand has been spent, but lodges like Matiti and Mapate now need a second tender for solar, water, furniture to be operational. So once completed, what is the projected number of permanent jobs and annual revenue per lodge? I think all this is important for us to actually see the benefits on the ground. And then again, on the Tisane Cultural project, again in Limpopo province, you're saying functional completion was reached on 25th February 2026, but final account is still pending due to the service providers' delays. So what is the actual handover date to the national department, and what action has been taken against this professional service provider, because surely we cannot allow these service providers to continue dealing due to whatever reason. And then when you look into at TT Game Lodge, again in the Limpopo province, works completion was reached on 4th of August, but functional completion is blocked due to contracted defects and now requires a new tender for paving, solar, water. This is like we're having a repetitive thing every time you come. We have this type of issue, more monies, more monies, more monies. What is the final cost and new completion date? And why was this not in the original scope in the first place? Because I think this is what all members are trying to say. You have a plan of action, then you want to implement. And then when it's finished, you find, oh no, now you want more money. Why is this all not actually, looked at right in the beginning when you were working with the actual of the project? And then you're looking at, 10 projects, including Vredefort, Mapate, Maniane, now requires a second round of funding to be functional. Again, what is the total additional cost required and who is being held accountable for these planning failures? Because surely somebody didn't plan well. I mean, we went to Vredefort Dome and we could see this was done, then that is not done. That is done, and then the water issue is a problem, then electricity. So why are these not actually considered right in the beginning? And then I got quite a few that I can actually speak on, but I'm going to just go to consequence management. How many, professional service providers and contractors have been penalized, fined, or blacklisted in the last 2 years for delays and poor delivery? And who pays for, latent defects like Maluti, that is 2.5 years, 2.5 years after handover? Chair, we allocated 1 billion for jobs and tourism GDP, not for buildings that cannot operate. Surely we need dates, numbers, and accountability today. We can't be just having the same type of presentation, looks very good on paper, but we're not actually getting the effect. I do have some recommendations, Chair. I don't know if you want me to read it out now or put it onto our group.
You've already taken 6 minutes, Honorable Ishmael.
Can I put it onto the group?
You may do so.
Thank
So
you.
we'll see what are you recommending and see when I make my final closing remarks whether I will make it form part of the closing remarks.
Thank you.
Host Honorable Masha Bela is in the lobby. Is it possible to just accept her? Honorable Flongo.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and greetings to the Minister and the Deputy Minister of the Department of Tourism, the DG, and all the officials from the department and DPSA, and the Chairperson of DPSA, Mr. Makura. You are welcomed. I heard that you said it was your first time interacting with the Portfolio Committee. We welcome you to the Portfolio Committee on Tourism and looking forward to working with you. Chairperson, DPSA has indicated that 12 projects remain at the planning stage because of budget constraints. What will happen to these projects going forward? Will they ever proceed to constructions, or are they effectively being abandoned? The reason I'm asking this, Chair, is that significant resources have already been invested in planning and design for these projects. If they do not proceed to implementation, how does DPSA justify the expenditure already incurred? Chairperson, again, the presentation shows expenditure of approximately 19.7 million against a budget of over 133 million for the current financial year. What are the main reasons for the slow expenditure? And is DPSA confident that the program will recover sufficiently before year end? Chairperson, across several projects, contractor performance is repeatedly cited as the reason for delays. What measures has DPSA introduced to strengthen contractor management, and how many contractors have had their contracts terminated or been placed on terms because of poor performance? Chairperson, another challenge that continues to affect infrastructure delivery across the country is the growing program of extortion and the so-called protection fee. We cannot continue to regard this as merely a contractor's program or problem. What role are the department and DPSA playing, together with law enforcement and other organs of state, to ensure that these criminal activities do not delay projects and deny communities the benefit of tourism infrastructure? Chair, the presentation reports more than 1,100 employment opportunities created. Can DPSA indicate how many of these were temporary construction jobs and how many have translated into sustainable employment after project completion? It also reports that 299 SMMEs benefited from the program. What support has been provided to ensure these businesses continue to participate in the tourism value chain after construction has been completed? Now, on Mpumalanga projects, Chair, that were presented today, the presentation indicates that Numbi Gate Mdluli Safari Ranch project is affected by a court interdict between end users. However, the lodge is already operating commercially and is available for bookings. Could DPSA clarify exactly what aspect of the project remains under dispute? Does the interdict affect ownership, management, revenue sharing, or community benefits? And who is currently benefiting from the operation of the launch? If the facility is already operational, how are the intended community beneficiaries currently participating? Are they receiving the economic benefits originally envisaged when public funds were invested in the project? And on the Songimvelo, SS Kosane Manyeleti and Over Nature Reserve, the presentation reflects that these projects have reached close out. Has DPSA conducted any assessment to determine whether these projects are operational and achieving their intended tourism community development objectives? And then lastly, Chair, looking at the current portfolio, most of the projects in Mpumalanga appear to be reaching completion. While there are no new infrastructure project planned for the province, does DPSA have any pipeline of future tourism infrastructure projects from Mpumalanga, particularly in rural areas with high tourism potential? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Hlongo. Host, I still do not see Honorable Mashabelo on the platform. Is she in the lobby waiting to be accepted? Are you able to see her?
I'm in now, Chair.
Oh, there you are, Honorable Mashabela. Okay. I was just making sure because I've asked previously for them to accept you into the meeting. Thank you. Honorable Likharaba.
Good morning, Chair, the Honorable Minister, the Deputy Minister, DG Vele, Deputy Minister, then DG Vele, the Chairperson of the Board, DBSA Board, Mr. Makura, and all officials present in the meeting. Thank you very much, Chairperson, Mr. Makura, for your opening remarks. We appreciate your emphasis on delivery, accountability, and importance of ensuring commitments translate into tangible outcomes for the communities. You said today is your first engagement with the committee, and we welcome this opportunity for constructive dialogue and strengthen the oversight. We look forward to continued engagement with you and the DBSA leadership in future meetings as we work together to ensure effective implementation, improved performance, and accountability for the public resource. Chairperson, the presentation was very much informative and well received. However, I have some few questions for clarity and further understanding. On the presentation, the presenter talked about the several projects, including Mapatem, Tititi, Chongwe, and Ngove, Freedom Dome, Kwatwa Guest, and others that require a significant additional scope of work after practical or final completion date to the omission of critical components such as electricity supply, water treatment system, septic system, paving, furniture, and security infrastructure from the original contract. What does the DBSA account for this recurring designs and project planning failures? And what measures are in place to ensure accountability for the original feasibility studies, cost estimates, procurement processes, and professional teams responsible for defining the project scope? On the funded projects like Chongwe and Chatongwe and Muzipen and Mutititi that experience financial distress, abandoned sites, or required contract termination, what due diligence assessments were conducted to evaluate the contractors' technical capacity, financial stability, and ability to deliver before appointment? And why did the DBSA contractor monitoring and performance management mechanism fail to identify and address this risk earlier enough to prevent project disruptions, delays, and additional cost? On the 30 projects, Honorable Maecho spoke about. I would like to add another question, or what are the main factors contributing to the delay in finalizing and submitting compliant closeout report? And what is the average period taken from practical completion or final completion of the project to the submission of the closeout project? And what intervention has the DBSA put in place to address this bottleneck and improve accountability for timely project closure? My other question, Chairperson, is on 1,268 employment opportunities that were reported the previous year, where only 177 benefited women and 6 benefited persons with disability, indicating limited participation by this group. What specific targets, contractual obligations, monitoring system, and enforcement mechanism has the DBSA put in place to ensure greater inclusion of women and persons with disability in employment opportunities across current and future projects? And what consequences apply when contractors fail to meet these commitments? The program continues to experience the variation orders and additional procurement processes for works that appear to have been omitted from the original project scope. I just want to know, Chairperson, whether the DBSA undertaken a comprehensive root cause analysis to determine why multiple facilities were delivered or reached near completion without essential functional requirements, and what corrective measures, process improvements, and governance reforms have been implemented to prevent similar scope deficiencies and cost escalation and delays in future projects? Last, Chairperson, it's on the program continue to experience a high number of variation orders, and I know this one I've spoken about. The last one is on the closeout report. Once the closeout report have been approved, what is the current status of the Section 47 PFMA transfers to the respective owning entities, and how many completed facilities have successfully transitioned into full operational use? Furthermore, can the DBSA provide an update on the number of facilities that are currently functional, generating tourism-related economic activities and revenue, and contributing to the intended objectives of the program? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Ikaraba. Honorable Linda.
Chairperson, good morning, colleagues and everybody on the platform. Chair, I think many of the questions have been posed, but I'm nevertheless going to continue. The DBSA was appointed as the implementing agent in November 2020. Now, 5 years later, there's only a few projects that are completed, and the budget increased with nearly 300 million rand. The Auditor General found 120 million in fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Now, Chair, we need to request an independent forensic audit of all the cost overruns and the delays. On the MOU with the DBSA, contains penalty clauses for non-performance. Contractors were terminated. Amongst other overspending, Oaks Lodge, for instance, reached 183% of its original budget. And Royal Kalanga Lodge is nearly 2 years overdue. So, Chair, the question was posed, have any penalty clauses been applied? What consequence management has been taken against non-performing contractors, project managers, or DBSA officials? And very important, have these non-performing contractors been red flagged across government spheres? On DBSA, you reported 54 practical completions. Only 30 projects have closed out and only 11 have final completion. So that means, if I'm correct, only 24 projects or around 24 projects are stuck between practical completion and closeout. Now, for the 54 projects for practical completion, how many are fully operational, generating in revenue? And that was asked by Honorable Lekharage. Formally handed over to the municipalities or the communities, connected to basic services and free from defect. For the other projects, can you give us a further report on the current stage, the date of practical completion, reasons for the delays, and a new date for the final completion and handover? Of the 54 projects with practical completion, how many are now in use? How many have water and electricity? How many have been handed over? Chairperson, from DBSA and the department, we need a status report on the operational readiness for all the completed projects. Chair, then I have a question to the Minister. Section 3 of the DBSA Act defines the bank's primary purpose as financing development projects, not necessarily executing them. However, there is provision for that. Given the DBSA performance, have you conducted a formal review of DBSA suitability as implementing agent? And can you commit to an open, competitive tender process for all future projects? And thirdly, Minister, are you in the process to develop a transition plan to move away from DBSO when the MOU ends in 2027? Chairperson, then I also have a few recommendations. I'm just going to read it in short, but I'll also post it in the group. And I think you might have it in your recommendations already. The committee requests a full detailed report project by project of all 71 projects. We request an independent audit of all the completed projects. And we request a full report on all the action taken against non-performing contractors, DBSA project managers who did not perform, and the officials responsible for the 119.84 million in fruitless and wasteful expenditure. DBSA to provide a report on implementing the penalty clauses in the MOU. And then the last one is, Chair, that we request a sustainability plan for each completed project that is from the department. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Linda. Honorable Buthelezi.
Thank you, Chairperson, and greetings to you, Chair. Greetings to the Minister. Greetings to the DG, and greetings to the DBSA delegation, and greetings to you, my colleagues. I only have a few questions from my side, Chair. This one will go straight to the DBSA. How does DBSA coordinate with provincial and local government to ensure that completed tourism infrastructure is integrated into local tourism development plans and receives the necessary municipal services? And I also have this one also going to, to the department. To what extent have local communities participated in the planning, implementation, and monitoring of these projects, and how has their feedback influenced project delivery? Another question, Chair, is what percentage of the budget allocated to the Working for Tourism program has been spent on actual infrastructure delivery compared to planning, design, project management, and also administration? Thank you, Chair. Those are my few questions that I have to submit today. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Buthelezi. Honorable Mashabela.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to the members. Under expenditure, Chair, the program budget is approximately 133 million, yet only around 19.7 million had been spent. Given South Africa's infrastructure backlog, how does DBSA justify such significant under expenditure while tourism infrastructure remains incomplete? On the issue of cost escalation, several projects required additional funding after construction commenced. How much additional public funding has been approved through variation orders across the program, and what proportion resulted from inadequate planning during project preparations? Nearly 885 million, Chair, has been spent. The question to the DBSA is, has DBSA undertaken an independent economic impact assessment to determine whether this expenditure has generated measurable returns in tourism revenue, employment, and local economic growth? After spending approximately 885 million, how many completed tourism facilities are currently operating at full commercial capacity? And how many require further public funding simply to become functional? And if these figures are unavailable, how can Parliament conclude that taxpayers have received value for money? The last one, Chair, on slide 26, the previous projects like Manyani Lodge and Platifontein Lodge failed and money was spent. How much was recovered and what were the consequence management? Manyani Lodge, Chair, is a crime scene and DBSA is knowingly cleaning that crime scene to prevent accountability and jail time for those corrupt individuals who were involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mashabela, and thank you to all honorable members for your questions. I'll now hand over to Mr. Makura and Mr. Ramphele from DBSA to interact with the questions. Over to you.
Chairperson and Chair, I would like to thank all the honorable members for all the inputs they have made and also the questions they have raised, some of which have been directed at the DBSA, actually most of them. So from our side, we will respond to those questions. At this point, Chair, I would like to start with Chweni again, but after that I will ask the chair of the board committee, Dr. Petros Machi. As I said earlier on, that is the board committee responsible for oversight and governance of infrastructure delivery. I will ask him to also say something. He is an experienced professional as well in this area of, he's an infrastructure professional, so he will also reflect on that, including how the board ensures oversight on this project. I want to say to you, one of the culture that the DBSA board has introduced is not just to evaluate the reports that are coming from management. We insist on also visiting the actual infrastructure projects themselves. And I would like Dr. Machi when he speaks to talk a lot on that, because recently the board committee that he leads undertook a visit to, we do province by province. The board committee visited the Limpopo infrastructure projects that the DBSA is responsible for. So he will talk about that. I am very glad that the committee members have also highlighted sharply some of the processes and systems of infrastructure delivery, and our team is going to deal with those issues very sharply, including how we would deal with the contractors who are not delivering, including how we measure that these projects themselves are contributing to economic development, what we call at the DBSA development impact. So every rand we spend in these projects, what the development impact is on jobs, but also on small businesses in the area, and also on just changing the distribution of the tourism infrastructure spatially across the country, so that it is not concentrated in one province. So all those we will deal with all the questions that members have asked us, including on the fact that so far the spend is only 19 million. The assurances you want from the DBSA that we will be able to by the time we get to the end of March 2027, we would have delivered on that. So, Mr. Chweni, we start with you, and I will round up after Dr. Machi.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much, members. Really appreciate. Let me start to recognize the questions by Honorable Macho. Indeed, in terms of the memorandum of agreement, and I'm responding to the issue around how are we capacitating the Department of Tourism. And incorporated in our agreement, it was the support in terms of establishment of the program support unit, which particularly would then be in a person to be responsible for infrastructure in the department. So that has been implemented. We have currently the PSU in place with 5 resources. So they are based at the department working on infrastructure projects. So there are just only 3 that we really are about to appoint, which is basically just more the program accountant and the tourist specialist. And the reason why, the tourism specialist is required is just to come and really be in a position to do to support the department in terms of proper planning in terms of operations of these lodges, because as you know, these are community based and community driven lodges. So in particular, you need an operator and a model that begins to speak to what members has been talking about, the commercial aspects of this project, and that's the reason why we're looking at a tourism specialist. But at this point in time, the PSU is fully functional. And then it's basically part of the evidence of the capacity of the part. The other question that we raised was the issue around the projects that is the remaining timeframes. Looking at the FC, which is the final completion closeout reports in terms of that. And I think we tried to provide members with a sense of then saying on this project, this is when we are hoping to finalize the FC, to deal with the FC. And like as I said, the reasons being one, that in some cases, some of these PSPs have now liquidated some, and we are trying almost to find a way of reconstructing those particular family accounts, working with a new contractor. So somebody needs to sign as a professionals. So we are really on the confidence level to then say we will deal with the FCs of what we've actually given you to say they will reach those closeout of those projects. And projects in construction, you are correct to then say when you look at the 3 projects in construction, we have also provided a tabular form to then indicate as to when the practical completion is going to be done. And if you look at it, is like Plagfontein is the 27th of April 2027. And now the memorandum of agreement says March 2027. So, and those are the business case issues that then begins to indicate to then say there is obviously a necessity for that extension to just conclude this project, because after that, there have to really be, after practical completion, there have to be the works completion, which is around another 90 days. Then we then have another FC as well as the closeout report, as you correctly indicated. So those areas we have articulated to what we're anticipating and planning for the closeout report to be done. So it goes way beyond the March 2027. But at this stage, obviously, we had opined with the department in terms of looking at the reality of this particular project, especially the 3 ones, indicating the implication in terms of the extension. That would be an extension, not necessarily with cost. It would be just an extension indicating, just to put this project to that particular level. So, and that's why those projects in construction, we are dead confident that they will be completed in terms of how we have planned them on the PC level. So that is primarily to wrap up on the issues that have been raised from the side. And some of especially this issue around the new ones that are coming, they will have the implication, but I'll answer some of the areas as we go deeper into the transparent questions. Now, the other issue is the issue around there was another question to then say, why did the minister indicate, but I wouldn't want to really respond on behalf of the minister. I think what my point would be to then say, there is no, I think at this point in time, we've been given a go-ahead that the budget is available to just deal with the planning. So the planning process has not stopped. It is in varying stages in terms of completion. Like I said, we will take them from stage 1 to stage 4, and that is budgeted for. And that budget is taking place. So as to whether they will then continue to that effect, I think it is the question that has been upon earlier on to then say, then it's a question of then saying we need to look for funding to really proceed for this project to proceed to construction. I don't think at this stage there's any indication to then say they are not going to go into construction. I think it's an issue of then saying how do we then mobilize the resources and budgets for those particular projects to go there, and to then confirm that they are a necessity for those communities that needs to really be in a position to experience those projects. Now, the questions from Honorable Ismail, I think the questions are much more evaluation questions in terms of now, I don't think we'll do justice in ourselves at this point in time. I wouldn't say that we have the answer to then say this particular lodge, how much of those are particularly more the post ante type of things that needs to be done in terms of the evaluation. I think what we may undertake to do is probably to then look at all of them once handed over, because the 30 of them is not that all of them has been taken over by the communities themselves, because it is where we're really then starting to ensure that who is the operator. Because remember, the community is a community, and as a result, you need to be very clear to then say who particularly will be driving this. That's why I raised the issue of the operators to then say we are working very tirelessly with the department to then say how do we then be in a position to sort out the operators issue so that at least we know this is operated on behalf of the community. And that, because if you just give it to the community, the question is who are you giving to? Because there had to really be some accountability in terms of taking care of the infrastructure as such. And I think where we're sitting, I think the questions that we're raising are much more the evaluation questions that I think we might have to undertake to then say, from here, what we can then do to then, and then I think it builds up to some of the questions that have been raised, then say how many out of the 30 are functional, how many are this? So what we will do is to comprehensively provide the committee later on in terms of just getting into tabulating this thing and submit a separate report that is able to articulate that out of this 30, this one has been handed over, and then this one is operational. And then we're starting to look at the impact of it so far. We tried obviously with like your Matsila lodges, because it's operational. We started to look in terms of how many jobs has been created in relation to the permanent jobs that have been created in relation to the operations. We have some numbers there, but we think it has to really be quite comprehensive to answer that question in terms of the return on investment as you're raising. So I think let me lump up that to then say we'll then do that particular kind of a complaint, because we haven't done the post, handover evaluation in terms of them operating. At this point, as I said, we're still trying to close out some of those there. Hence, I said there are close-out reports. But then we'll have an undertake to that effect. And I think there was another issue that was, I will also deal with the issue of what is happening in particular lodge, what is the revenue that you're generating, and so on. Those will be some of the questions to just come to firm up that particular point. And then the issue of the jobs themselves, like as you said, for this financial year, from the 133, and we're talking 226, and we've already registered 108 in this particular first quarter, which is basically April up until June. So for that, we've broken it down, and then that particular kind of number that we've put is just that breakdown that we're then showing to the current jobs that we have in terms of the 108. What is the how many males, how many females, and so on and so on. I thought we provided that. But the balance of that is to the question that says, how are we going to really be in a position to deal with these particular jobs at this point in time? Still have 3 quarters, we still have 3 projects that are in construction, and all of these particular projects that are at a various stage. And then in that particular stages, we are recording as we go the number of jobs that are being created. So we have some projections to an extent that we then came to that projection of 226. So at this point in time, continuously we'll be reporting as to what number of jobs we are bringing into that particular into the space. So now we also then there is an issue around the generally the PFPs or the contractors that are not performing. As we said, that's why you see many of the terminations that we've actually instituted. We have taken some of them. We've invoked the penalties in number of the contractors, and that's why many of them then ended up having the inability to go back and even begin to fix to remedy the snacks, because you have imposed penalties, and penalties means when we impose them on the payment certificates we're making, we deduct that particular kind of a penalty because it's a contractual thing that is there. So we follow the contract and make sure that we implement that project. So in many of them, we know exactly to then say, this is the penalty that we've imposed. And that's what brought many of the contractors to the point where they're unable to go and complete the works. And our default position, therefore, is to then appoint another contractor that is capable using those costs, those monies, because it's not additional money, it's money that comes from the penalties as well as what is remaining in the contract to complete the project. So from a consequence management point of view, that's primarily what we do. But in further to that, we then also refer these particular companies to our department, as I said, for the evaluation to then say, what has happened. This is what has happened, and we do what we call contractor evaluation from our side. We do continuous evaluation, and those evaluations we therefore then refer these people down to we then list them, and then in some cases submit to the national treasury, as the national treasury relies on our department policy. So now, I think that is dealing with the issue of the penalties and the consequence management, particularly from that point. So, and I think other issues that have been raised, there's been a number of issues raised by Honorable Ishmael around the DSANI, the SMMB, the sustainable issues that we are really putting into this in terms of who is basically benefiting. And I said, what we will do is to package this particular kind of code, because these are particularly more the evaluation questions, to then say, how do we, then we'll then package that and be in a position to provide that particular report. Let me put it that way. And the issue of the final account delays, it relates what I said just now to then say, you have a PSP that needs to really be in a position to conclude with the QSs, and they're not concluding. And what we normally do, we activate our own QSs to then other QSs to go and really be in a position to complete that particular. Because at the final account stage, it is more just reconciling the numbers and with what we have delivered on site. So that we think it's in control, because that is basically the final stage that we're really engaging with the PSPs. But we have got a mechanism in place to ensure that where that PSP doesn't perform, we don't wait for them, but we then continue with the work and then be in a position to take those drastic steps against themselves. Now, the other question was why in the beginning some of these particular things has not been considered. As I said, we're implementing community-based kind of projects. In some of these, many of these projects as you get in, obviously you have engaged with them from a social facilitation point of view in the beginning up until you then do the designs, then you finalize. But in the process of implementation, then because you are meeting with because they are part of the steering committees, they are participating in the projects. So you then find that there are other issues that are then becoming to rise up to then say, probably we are thinking you need to really be in a position to consider this. So then we will table that together with the department and we sit together and say, is it a reasonable request in this regard? And then we will then say, if it's reasonable, what is the implication of it to the timelines, to the budget and all of that? Then we'll incorporate that. And that's why some of the projects, as we're looking at them, we may have the original scope would have been done a long time ago, but because of these additional requirements that are really coming, we then have to incorporate them and include them in the process. And that's what has actually been one of the key things that have been shifting some of this. So, Honorable Chongo, the issue of the 12 projects in planning, I think I've articulated on that the budget is there to get them to the planning, to the stage 4, that we have a package, they are prepared. So, in essence, those projects will be, in a project preparation language, they will be technically sound for them to really be in a position to then be implemented. But the issue is that at that point in time, we will have to determine as the construction budget to that effect. And I think that is the decision that would have to be taken at the level of the department once then the budget is secured for that matter. So you spoke about the 133 million, and we're going to spend 19.7. This 19.7 is just for this particular quarters, as I've indicated. And where the most of the expenditure is going to be derived of, because this expenditure, the 133 is made up of the new projects that are in construction. And I think there's a slide that I provided beginning to indicate the budget of each and what we have already then provided. So we're very clear to then say, this one in the beginning is about 30 million rand. This is the 30 million we need to spend over this particular period. And then we have articulated it that way. So now we don't have any challenge in relation to having to spend that 133. And at this point in time, like as I said, for this quarter, the quarter ending June, we spent that particular kind of amount, which is 19.7. Indeed, now we with Platfontein moving, with Manyani and this moving, we'll see that expenditure rising up. But also the final accounts that I've spoken about, as we close them, because final accounts, we are not paying the PSPs or the contractors until that sign-off has been done, so until they're completed. So some of the expenditure is accounted in that particular regard. At the point in time, for this financial year, like as I said, yes, it may look like 19.7 of the 133, but totally the most expenditure is sitting in those projects that are in construction. And that's basically, where we're saying the projects are on course. So I think for us, it's basically to drive it from that point. So the 19.7 should be understood in that particular context. And we're definitely sure that we'll recover that before year end already. As I said, we've put in the measures to strengthen that part. The issue around the contractor's performance, we do thorough due diligence before we really appoint them. But the issue is, you can only utilize the data that you have at that point in time. But as then time goes on, contractors experience their own challenges, wherever that they are, and it does not necessarily negate the fact that we would have vetted. They might have had enough cash flow at the time that we were really, appointing them. But down the line, in their own management of their businesses and in their own management of the project itself, you may find that they really are tripping off in terms of the cash flow, and they start not to have enough money to then be in a position to cover certain things. And what we did as the DBSA, obviously, at some point, is to then give them maybe an opportunity to then say, if you're experiencing cash flow problems, we have also a developmental support role in terms of, say, we do have some working capital support that you could really, assist you to then pull the project, because it's not always the question of incapacity in terms of them building. They know how to build, but I think it's an issue around if you don't have the money to buy the material to build, then the project won't go. So that's basically where we're really going. So we are really supporting them as one of the measures to then put in, some working capital support where we really allow them to buy the material and be in a position to deal with. Obviously, that is according to them, if they really would want that particular kind of thing. But we're pushing in terms of making sure that also construction on site is taking place more diligently. The issue of the extortionists obviously is true. We had number of sites where people come with entitlement to then say, we are the business forums, we are the SMMEs in this particular kind of an area, so we really want to get the 30%. And then those have been our daily social facilitation issues that we've been dealing with. And in some extreme cases, obviously, we have partnered with the local police stations in a number of all of these particular areas that we're implementing, to also then make them to be part of our project, to then understand that whenever we come across this kind of incidents, we will definitely come and open cases of that particular nature. Because normally the people attack the contractors, then the contractors are encouraged in a process. We have a defined process for them to go and open those particular cases. In some cases, we do engage with those business forums directly to understand as to what it is that they're really wanting to achieve out of these exercises. And then we, some obviously cooperate, some obviously they feel like, no, they are entitled. And then, but we then involve the police to really come in for construction to proceed in that regard. So the jobs, we can't say at this point in time, because I think our role was mainly to say, in the construction, let's look at the job opportunities that we create. So the jobs that we are accounting for, that are the jobs particularly in the construction. That's why I'm looking back to the point of saying that if we to measure the jobs that are created by this operations of these particular facilities, it is an evaluation question that we need to then answer down the line. Today, now that it has been handed over, the closeout report has been done, now that it's operating, how many people are being employed? At this stage, our accountability is in relation to the number of jobs that have been created in relation to the construction. Is how much jobs have we created with this budget of construction in that regard? So that would be the point. And I think the issue around the Mdluli on the Mpumalanga, is you're right. I think I'll lump it I'll put it as also part of that evaluation that we need to really do as to understanding as to who's particularly benefiting at this particular point in time. Because I know from our side, we handed it over, then it started operating. And I think that's where the issues are starting to then emerge, to then say, who particularly, is the owner at this point in time. And that's the issue that I think the department will also help us to respond to that down the line, because it's what emerges. Like, as I said, it's communities. Now you start realizing that initially they were agreeing, down the line they're starting to disagree. And those are the kind of issues that we're really faced with regards to the Mdluli point. Because the other faction says, no, we interdict. The other one says, no, we are the rightful owners. And those are matters that are really being handled at this point in time. And I think there has been some interventions coming from the ministers. And then you also then talked about the Sagumbelo and all of this. As DPSA done the comprehensive assessment on the project itself, I think we will also then package this part of the evaluation question. But we have obviously in the beginning done the proper assessment that led to the designs and all of that. So like as I said, in the process of implementation, you start realizing that there are some of issues that you see variation orders having to come. And those are the kind of issues that we evaluate and say, we think it's a reasonable request in that regard. It might have been omitted at that point in time, but let's take it from that point. So in terms of in Mpumalanga, the future tourism projects, I think the department would be able to assist with that in terms of, are there any projects that are really coming from Mpumalanga? Because then at this point in time, we are executing the ones that we've been there to assist the department in terms of the implementation part of it. So now, those projects in construction, like as I said, if you look at their budgets, it's quite significant to then really be in a position to speak to the 133, and it relates to the question that I raised earlier on. So we are definitely, can commit to then say, we will definitely then, at the completion of that, spend that 133 million in that regard. Honorable Hara, you are also asking the question about what measures are in place to ensure proper designs and at the beginning, which is a very correct observation to then say, in the beginning we need to be spending much more time on planning to ensure that we really mitigate for any further, further variations down the line. So in this particular regard, yes, we did all our best in terms of looking at the, the designs. Like as I said, it is these are typical community-based projects that will not have quite a number of people having input in that regard. So, but the measures that we put in place, obviously, is the review processes that after the designs has been done, socialized with the communities, we then bring them to the review, committee that is basically comprised of the department and ourselves to look in terms of the adequacy of the design and whether it is actually achieving what needs to be achieved. And that is just more the preventative measures to try and avoid. But when it happens down the line, we then use the process of the evaluation process and the review of what we see as the reality on the ground to that effect. So now I've indicated, as you raised, the issue of Chatohwe and all of that in terms of the contractors that are really doing that, because it's permeating a lot. I can assure you that we do due diligence at the beginning. When the contractors tender for our work, we're asking for guarantees, we're asking for, what monies do they have in the bank account, what is backing them, how they're going to be implementing the project. And we get all of that before we even sign the contract. Hence, I say, at that stage, the person is in good standing properly, and then is then you appoint him, then he starts. So down the line, in the implementation part, then that's where you then find that they're starting to stagger in that regard. So, and we really, because then it's monthly program meetings, steering committee meetings, those issues are relevated to us to then be in a position to deal with in that respect. So now, on the 30 project, like I said, we are saying what are the main reasons for the delays in the closeout. As I said, the closeout report is a comprisation of it comprises of the final account as well as as all of the certificates packaged together with regards to ensure the handover. So one of the main reasons, like as I said, is some of the things not having been addressed by the contractor himself because he doesn't have the money or the cash flow to go and finish up those particular work. In some other cases, we find a situation where the PSP has run out of the traveling disbursement budget. Now is not really, given the effort to go and really be in a position to certify the work in that regard. So those are some of the reasons that we're really coming across. But what we make sure that we don't do is to overpay or to pay for that work before it has been completed. Hence we have a leverage now to then appoint someone that is able to conclude that, and we have a closeout report that we can really be in a position to do the transfers to that effect. So now on the jobs, whether we have specific targets to ensure greater participation of the designated groups, we do that in the beginning when we don't do the projection in terms of this is the value, how much jobs we then really expecting. And what we do, we sit with the contractor and the PSP and ourselves collectively to then say, what we need to do is that this project is not just only about brick and mortar, but it's also driving transformation in ensuring that we then do have the representation in terms of the women and youth and that. So now we always come up with those particular targets, but the contractor's role to then go out there and be in a position to ensure that the recruitment process in terms of the laborers, it then becomes a reality. And then we monitor that completely. Yes, we see some deviations here and there, but we put it very straight to then say we really want this particular kind of number to come in. And then again, that is a matter that we continuously would improve on and continuously go on. You can realize that there's a number of jobs, 500, and then the women participation is that we have raised it sharply together with DG, and we're continuously saying in these projects, the contractors need to really be in a position to implement this thing so that it doesn't just become a man's world. The issue of the variation orders, obviously the variation orders have emerged in a number of cases due to a number of circumstances. And for us, what is important is, are we observing the variation order process as defined in the construction space? And that I think that's where the test is. And that's what we have focused in making sure that the process of variation orders is done correctly in accordance with the contract and in accordance with the best practice. And then ensure that we record all of that, because then if the evaluation order is approved properly, then it means that the budget, if it was 200 and then we had an evaluation order of 50, then the budget does shift to be 250. Then we're still within that very same kind of a thing. But we are very, very, very orderly in terms of pushing that. We avoid a lot of these particular kind of variations, because variations, like as you say, it can create a perception that, you know, the people that have been planning, they may not necessarily have taken consideration of certain things, which is on the other side is true. That's why some PSPs will say, but how did you omit, you know, the caps on the pay? Because that should have not happened. And that's why we really are coming we're really taking the consideration to say we have to be very strong on the corrective measures to prevent scope escalations. So, but many of the scope that has escalated on this project, you'll see that it's more, you know, and I think maybe that has been the weakness in terms of acceding to some of the community, concerns that are raising in relation to this from a project steering committee. But again, I rely more on us able to have a process that needs to be followed to really deal with that process. So, Melharaba, what we'll do on the closeout report, as part of the report, I think we will one by one, but we tried in the report to also then give a sense of saying this project is at this stage, and this is the closeout report that is basically. So I think maybe the issues when will this closeout report then be concluded. We also put in some timelines there to just show when we're anticipating to finalize that. But we'll give the update on also on the facilities in operation as we requested, and it will form part of the comprehensive submission that we need to make in relation to closeout report, but also in relation to how many are operating and then what is the value that we're deriving from that. Honorable Linda, you indicating that there's a budget increase and cost overruns, and that's why I think we also try to provide to show that in the report the budget was this, and we have spent so much. We haven't realized any over expenditure on the projects themselves in relation to the budget that we had. But it's been provided. We'll also then maybe amplify that particular part to show, because on each and every project we have a proper record in terms of the budget was this is what we spent, and then this was the variation order which increased the budget to this level. So I think we may have to then look in terms of how we present that information in relation to the budgets and versus the expenditure on each and every project. We haven't realized any cost overruns on this particular program in that regard. So I've spoken to the issue that we're raising on the penalty clauses against the contractors. We have implemented all of that. The issue is we have instituted those penalties against many of the PSPs and then against many of the contractors. And then we also as I said, those non-performing, we list them and we record them, we flag them. As I said, DBSA does thoroughly the contractor evaluation and the performance evaluation. And that performance evaluation is taken to our committee that has to evaluate as to whether do we then put this one as a department, or this is just purely a person that really, you couldn't have done anything because it just doesn't have the cash flow to deal with this particular matter. And so that we don't find ourselves blacklisting somebody because he didn't have the money on that particular day to implement the project. So we have those cases that, yes, this particular person, it's not a question of the cash flow, but it's a question of just, beginning to just do the stage, the wrong, and then those are the areas that we're looking at in terms of the department. But if somebody just doesn't have the money to complete, we evaluate those cases and say, if it will be unfair of us to then be in a position to say we're blacklisting this particular person for not having had the money. And normally we negotiate with them to then say, allow us contractually to appoint another contractor to complete, because the budget is in there. So the only problem is that you cannot have money to convert, to implement, so that at least you are able to generate an invoice. So that is basically how we're dealing with that particular process. So I think from a consequence management point of view, we are trying level best to really deal with that. So you raised also 54 projects, how many have been handed over? So we'll also then provide that particular kind of report in line with the updating of how many of these particular facilities are in operation. As I said, one of the critical things is that and I always say, department, we don't want to just like hand over for the sake of handing over, because then we need to hand over properly, knowing very well that from an operation point of view, this facility is going to really be well received. And if there are still issues, that's where it gives us a little bit of a problem, because then you'll hand it over, it will definitely from day one become a wild elephant, and that will then be in a position to then be saying, this project is not benefiting whatever. The benefit realization is not been dealt with. So I think in the current report, Melon, we try to indicate just which project is at PC, which one is at FC, and which one is at the closeout report. And Arnold Macho was very correct to then say PC is practical completion. I think the main thing is the closeout reports, and that's why we're striving to then pull all of those other ones into the closeout, because then it means then it's a final thing that has been done. So now the DBSA is playing that particular role in ensuring that those particular projects are closed, and then that the closure report are done, and to enable the department to go and do the handover to the beneficiaries. Honorable Chairs, out of the DBSA coordinate with the local government, a very important question, and I think it's done even right at the beginning when we inaugurate the project in the various provinces and the various municipalities. So part of the engagement we do is to bring the municipality, the councillors, through the councillors, managing those particular kind of things. And you will agree with me, at some point, some councillors would come in the beginning, later on they're not, because on the issue of the employment and then the policies on how we really have to really employ the locals, the councillors plays a very critical role in terms of being part of that process. So we do that, but for community participation, very clearly, it is a mainstream practice from our side to then get the contractors, to formulate the steering committees that is driven, normally chaired by the local people, with a number of people participating in that process. And our contractors, the PSP and the DBSA, as well as the department, form part of that particular kind of a committee to ensure that there is alignment in terms of running of this project. And that's what we do, Honorable Tennis. So, Honorable Shabela, you raised the issue of and which is similar to what Honorable Khare has said, around 130 million, 33 million for this financial year, only 19 million spent. So, like as I said, it is just the 3 months expenditure. We still have 9 months to go through in terms of the projects that are in construction. So the comfort you need to get is to get that comfort from the fact that these projects, there are still 3 projects that are still under construction. And then we can also maybe down the line then articulate as to, in terms of those projects that still have to reach the closeout stage, what is the remaining budgets that will be spent after the sign-off, because then we'd have handed over and then we're done with it. So, but we've worked it out with the cash flow to that effect. So we are definitely assuring you to then say the 19 million spent is just for the first quarter. Yes, it would have really been at 33 million if you have to divide it by 4. If we divide 133, probably the expenditure per quarter should have been that. But otherwise, it always not necessarily up in a straight line, because now there's an intensity in the implementation of the platform, intensity in the implementation of these other projects. So we're moving, with those projects, and I think we will then see the expenditure ramping up in the next quarter, as well as the other quarters that are really coming. But definitely, we will definitely arrive with that 133 million expenditure to that effect. Yes, indeed, you are correct on the cost escalation. Several projects, as you say, how much has been approved through reviews, and I think that I may not necessarily at this point in time just at the top of our head deal with it, but what we will do is also part of what we then follow up and then be in a person to then say, on each project, these are the views that has happened, and it will relate to that budget issue that I've raised, so that we can demonstrate that there's no budget overrun in terms of this process. Then we are all going to be providing that particular data and information in relation to that. So we'll do that to try and address that, to then say, where did the view apply and what was the view for, and then what was the amount for that view. And then again, you also emphasize the point of saying 885 million has been spent. Did DBSA undertake benefits assessment to that effect to then see what was it used for? And like you followed up with how many are operational. What we will do is that, again, it will be part of that evaluation exercise that we need to then just do but it will be limited to those projects that we have handed over to just see that they are in operation. But we haven't done the the benefit assessment. What we've just done was just been making sure that we manage this project to the completion. But I think the benefit, as I said, it is an evaluation question that we need to really be in a position to answer. Now, the issue of Platfontein, and then I hear that like Manyane, it's a crime scene. Yes, indeed, we've experienced a situation whereby at Manyane there's been some fire that happened there, and we investigated in that process. And at this point in time, we also then allow the contractor to then be doing the various claims that need to be done in terms of the insurances. And I think that is the exercise that is currently undertaken to ensure that at least we really are able to recover what could really be recovered. But as to the investigation that has happened, there's been an investigation involving the various authorities in dealing with this particular aspect on the Manyane one. So, but that doesn't stop us from continuing to really be in a position to deliver this particular projects in this particular regard. So, as I said, on the budget itself, we haven't really experienced any particular kind of irregular as such, or rather overfitting of the budgets. But we will also then structure it properly in terms of just indicating that on each and every project what has been the financial implication in that regard. So yeah, I think I've tried to capture a majority of that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ramphele. Through you, Chair. So I would like at this point to request, Chair, that you allow Dr. Machi, as I said, he chairs the Infrastructure and Knowledge Management Committee of the board, to allow him some reflections from a governance and oversight perspective.
No, thank you very much, Board Chairperson, Honorable Chair of the committee, and honorable members of Parliament. I'm just going to highlight 3 key points to assure members of the level of assurance that we are doing to make impact in all our projects. If we go back to the presentation, we highlighted 2 levels of assurance. Now the committee comes in as the 3rd one, whereby management present all the projects that the DBSA is doing to the infrastructure committee. And what we can assure members of is that the committee actually has got experts in the field who understand the infrastructure dynamic, both theoretically and practically, and look at the presentation from management, presentation by management from all that perspective. And then, in addition to the in addition to the oversight, theoretically, we also visit some of the sites to verify that what is presented to us is really happening on the ground. Because to us, it's not just about projects, but the impact that we make in our communities. I can just give one example, like Matsila Lodge. We went to visit the lodge and got that assurance that it's working and met the relevant parties. So what I'm trying to highlight is that it's not only about the reports, but we go to the site to confirm that what is presented in the report is what the public or the community is getting. And the second point, it's linked to, we always say the D in the Development Bank of Southern Africa. Development is one of the key important areas that we believe in. And some of the questions from members were highlighting that. For example, the issues related to job creation per project, youth, women, persons with disabilities, and so on. They are not just at the project level from our side. They become part of the key performance indicators of management. And when the committee oversee projects, those questions, are raised, and we address them, and we make sure that the project makes a difference in the lives of our people, including the questions that members were raising about the permanent jobs versus temporary jobs, and so on. So we look at projects as a vehicle for driving the local economy in the project areas, including empowering local people with the skills and capacity to do so. And we appreciate the issues that members raised about the challenges of overspending and the challenges of contractors on site and so on. As the oversight committee, with the understanding of the infrastructure environment on the ground, which is highly dynamic, we always look at how our documents are designed to address those challenges, and also how the contract is structured, including the cost management component to address value for money. So the issues that we are raising is what we continue to improve as the DBSA when management present this kind of projects to the committee, more especially on a quarterly basis. So one of the key points that the members highlighted, which is my last point in this one, is the issue of value for money. How does the project change lives of the people on the ground? Because for us, it's not just about looking at the report, it's about making a lasting impact in the lives of our people. So we always ensure that our project documents and design are structured to maximize the impact, not only as laborers. Throughout, we use sort of a system type of approach, whereby you look at the project from the concept stage, design and planning, implementation, and even after construction. And throughout that value chain, we would like to see how many jobs are created, how our people are empowered through training programs, and after construction or after the facility has been completed, how can it continue making impact, and how can we put systems that will ensure that it's not just a white elephant, but it continues, the facility continues to work after DBSA has completed the work. So we look at systems that we can put in place or that we can improve to support management in achieving not only the DBSA's objectives, but the country's objectives in transforming our economy and empowering the people. And this applies not only to this kind of infrastructure project from tourism, but all the infrastructure projects that the DBSA is implementing in various state-owned institutions. That is in brief, just to assure the members of the capacity of the committee, which is doing the work on behalf of the board. That is not just another board members, but it's technical experts with full understanding of the situation on the ground and how we should change lives of our people as part of our legacy. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to honorable members.
Thank you very much, Dr. Machi. Chair, I just want to conclude. I know that we have been given an opportunity by you as the committee to respond to all the questions that were raised by members. I want to conclude by saying that I think the issues that were raised by members, even though we have responded to them, we will go back as well from the board point of view with Dr. Machi to also include them for our own reporting purposes, especially development impact issues. And this question about post-construction, when the project has been handed over, often in environments like this, we've moved to look at the next project we're busy with. Because our client department is tourism, the Department of Tourism. So with regard to all the projects we have done with the Department of Tourism, like we do with all the other departments, this issue of evaluation is important, raised by members. So it would not be our principal responsibility, as I say, it's the Department of Tourism. We would have delivered, but we are very interested because the development mandate of the DBSA, it's that everything we do, even if we do it appointed by a particular department or municipality for that matter, everything we do and every cent we spend in those areas, including the technical skills we bring there, we want sustainability. And that's what development is about. We don't just want infrastructure that is dumped all over the place. So it is very much in our development mandate. So this question about post-construction and post-handover operations, including impact, the jobs in the area, the difference these projects are making. It's also a matter of our own interest at the DBSA. So I want to assure you that it is the work we will follow up on. The second thing I would like to say is that having visited a lot of the projects in Limpopo, our team is continuing to do this actual physical project verification across the country. So, and I listened very carefully about the problems, issue of Manyani Lodge. I'll very much, particularly hearing the Honorable Mashabela used the strong words, it's a crime scene. I would like our committee, our board committee that does infrastructure site visits to also do the visit. Because every issue members raise is a matter of consent to us. We don't just want to say management response is this. But as a board, we are very concerned about governance issues. And we don't want the DBSA to be drawn into in any project the DBSA is involved in on the wrong side of ethics and the law. On the wrong side of the law, it's easy to check what the law is, but sometimes the ethical side of things is not always easy. So we uphold and insist that our projects we don't want any of our officials at the bank to be involved in any wrongdoing. So we will look at the Manyani Lodge. And it's not the only one where in another committee of parliament, we asked for a member who raised issues on a project to give us details. Once there are issues highlighted by members of parliament, it's our responsibility as the board to follow up on them. We wouldn't dismiss any of the issues you have raised. I want to also just say that from a project, the DBSA is involved in financing a project, but we have a mandate also on technical assistance and project preparation. With municipalities, we provide lots of technical assistance. Our teams are on the ground, given the challenges of local government. We spend lots of the DBSA resources on supporting project preparation and doing project feasibility, but also project implementation with municipalities. And we're quite strict on this issue of poor performance by contractors. And that question came. So we can't have contractors being reappointed when they are not delivering. So that's part of what across the system we emphasize that and including consequence management for our officials who are not delivering on that. So I just want to assure the honorable members that this question about value for money and adherence to the timelines and delivery, holding people accountable, which you raised, is a commonly shared. And we also will go back to the question about the numbers, accounting fully when the project during construction phase, how many jobs were done. The next question is post-construction when in operation, how many jobs are we sustaining? And the issue of including women and the youth is it's national policy, but the DBSA also has got targets for that. I saw this in the report. There is a clear indication of underperformance on how many women have been working in the project. So it is a matter that the committee that Dr. Maji chairs will also be taking up as raised by members. So I think there's also an appreciation that this report must be given more often, but I think we are in the hands of the committee. If you call us, we will always come. We also, the Minister of Tourism, who's in this project, the project owner, basically, when the minister and her team wants us to submit any updates, we will be able to do that. But there's information we owe you that we've all been written, the breakdown. There was also a question about the spend per province. The projects are there. There was a question raised by Honorable Ismail about the breakdown on the spend per province. So we will also do all that, and we take your counsel and advice around. Again, in the end, this is public resources. We must account for it, and it's not just about dumping projects. What happens a few years later in those areas? But tourism has a real potential to make a big difference in the remotest areas of our country. And these projects have part of the project feasibility and preparation from our team is to make sure that there is going to be harnessing of this potential, working with the local municipality and the local communities. But we appreciate all the feedback from the team. We also take the criticism, but we want to assure you that from the board side, we will sit on, do our job. We'll do our job to ensure that management delivers on this tight time frames of 31st March 2027. It is our responsibility to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Makura and your team from DBSA for interacting with all the questions posed by honorable members. I am going to do some closing remarks, and after the closing remarks, our guests may take their leave. DBSA may take their leave, as well as the delegation from the department and our two ministers, because then we will proceed with our in-house administration. So having received the briefing and deliberations of the pertinent issues in relation to the matters related to the implementation of the tourism infrastructure projects, I would like to make the following remarks and recommendations for consideration by the Minister and the Director General and DBSA. So in the opening remarks, the Minister indicated that there is a budget and therefore there is no reason not to take projects to implementation. In this regard, the policy decision to put the implementation of infrastructure projects should be reviewed. Instead of putting implementation on hold, the Minister and the DG should consider the recommendation that was advanced by the committee before. And this recommendation is that the department must implement fewer but larger and impactful tourism infrastructure projects. This relates to community-based projects, not those earmarked for the investment summit. The Minister and DBSA must explore mechanisms where DBSA can use its own funding to implement some of the projects where planning and designs have been completed. Where viable, the department and DBSA must explore ways in which some projects where planning and designs have been completed to package these projects to be investment ready for showcasing in the forthcoming investment summit. Taxpayers' money has already been spent on these projects, and packaging them for the investment summit will prevent fruitless and wasteful expenditure. The condition of some projects on which the committee has conducted oversight visits are not in an accessible state. For example, the Lookout Hill in Khayelitsha in the Western Cape, where we've done our oversight, has reached final completion with a closed-out report. Yet what we have found as a committee on the ground is really not a complete project. This indicates that there has been no value for money in some of the projects. Also, this project is not used for what it was initially intended to do, and the committee has requested interventions from the Minister in the recommendations made in the Western Cape Committee report. The committee regards these projects as part of fostering transformation. They are meant to advance pro-poor interventions as South Africa is a developmental state. It is therefore important that all completed projects that are handed over to the beneficiaries are operational. The current state of affairs where projects are not operational and at handover stage is really unacceptable. The underspending by DBSA in implementing the infrastructure projects is unacceptable. DBSA must ensure that the entire budget is spent by the end of the tenure of the MOU on 31st of March 2027. The delays caused by community issues happening in the Numbi Gate and Mdluli Lodge in Limpopo is really unfortunate. This is a matter that has been there for a long time since the 6th Parliament, but has still not been resolved. So this points to poor stakeholder consultation before the inception of a project, and this should have been avoided. The poor performance by contractors, which has led to delays, is also unacceptable. This calls for better contract management on the side of DBSA. The increase of scope of work based on issues that were not identified at project conception has caused delays and need for more funding. The committee witnessed this firsthand when we visited the Vredefort Dome in Free State. Better planning should have prevented this. Given the remaining time of the MOU, DBSA must submit project recovery plans to the committee within 30 days to assure the committee that there are mitigation measures in place to bring all projects to its final completion. The committee will schedule quarterly update meetings with DBSA until the end of the MOU with the department. The department and DBSA should ensure that all projects handed over to the beneficiaries are operational. The department must quickly develop a sustainable plan for all the hospitality-related infrastructure projects. The DBSA is commended for honoring the MOU by assisting the department with capacity building through the program implementation unit. So I would like to urge DBSA to provide all outstanding capabilities through appointing the tourism specialist as indicated in this meeting. The committee accepts that the MOU will be extended without cost, as it is clear that the work already are in pipeline will not be completed by 31 March 2027. DBSA has committed in this meeting to develop an evaluation report. This must be submitted to the committee within 90 days and must include all issues raised in this meeting, such as long-term sustainability plans for each project, implementation of penalty clauses for each project, consequence management for non-performing contractors, the aspects to include in a cost-free extension of the MOU beyond 31 March 2027, project recovery plan, the number of jobs that have been created, and the projected projects at operational states. Now, with that said, I come to the end of my closing remarks, and I would like to again thank our Honorable Deputy Minister and Minister, the delegation from the department that is present, the delegation from DBSA led by Mr. Makura that is present, to thank you for honoring us today with your presence in the Portfolio Committee meeting. You may now take your leave.
Chairperson, if I may come in, I did put up my hand before you made your closing statement, because I do think there's a need for the Department of Tourism to respond some of the concerns raised by the committee, and I'm ready to do so. I will do it in less than 2 minutes, if through you, Chairperson.
Is it possible to please send those responses to us in writing, Minister?
No, some of the responses that I must make is a correction also for the record. I will send it in writing. But normally the department is also allowed to respond to some of the questions directly put to the minister and to the department, and we were not given that opportunity. But I will put it in writing to you and the honourable members, because some of the points raised was definitely not correct. Thank you, Honourable Chair and honourable members.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Minister. And with that said, you may now take your leave, as we will continue to proceed with our in-house administration. Honourable members, we will now move to the next item on our agenda, which is the consideration and adoption of the draft third-term program. Disang, is it possible to flight the third-term program and take us through the program? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can you see the program, Chair?
Yes, I can see Disang. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. We only have 3 weeks left. We only had until the end of August. So we had programmed the fourth quarter performance report for the department and their first quarter performance report for the 2026-27 financial year, which is this year we are in. And then I have also tried to amend the program just to include that particular tourism investment facilitation and the South African Tourism Investment Summit. That is a presentation that could not be done today, to see if we cannot slot it in for next week. And then that was for the 11th of August, Chair. And then for the 18th of August, we will also receive the presentation for the fourth quarter, which is 2025-26 financial year, performance report from SA Tourism. Then we'll also do the first quarter for 2026-27 quarterly performance report for the 18th of August. And then We will also do the briefing by the South African National Conventions Bureau on the outcomes of Meetings Africa for 2026 year, for this year, and then including the economic impact, the outcomes of the Africa Travel Indaba 2026, including the economic impact, and then the strategy to improve on hosting Meetings Africa and Africa Travel Indaba, which is for the last week of the month. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you, Disang. Honorable members, there you have our draft report. Have you seen it? And are you happy? May I have a mover for the adoption of it?
Chair, my hand is up and it was up since the minister was speaking. I wanted to ask about the answers that she was saying were given that are incorrect, meaning that DBSA gave incorrect answers, but it's fine, Chair. With the
No,
program,
sorry, Honorable Hlongo, it could have been also that like she tried to correct me in the beginning, and then other honorable members said, but this is what she said in the meeting. So that is why I thought I was not going to have a back and forth with the minister. But that, you know, I recalled, and all of you recalled the same thing as to what the minister have said in one of our particular meetings. So I think it was probably on some of the questions that was posed by honorable members and some of the remarks made by some honorable members. But,
thank you, Chair. Let me go to the program, Chair. I'm fine. I was just passing that. My issue is the issue of oversight. It is concerning, Chair, that we do not have time for oversight, but understanding how Parliament operates, we can go to oversight with this program at hand. And then let's say we take the last week of August, the 21st, and then the portfolio committee can still sit where we would be for the oversight, and then we just call those that need to come to that very particular place where would be for oversight. But I would really, really plead with the committee chair that we do consider taking one province in this quarter for oversight before we close, so that at least when we're counting, we've only done 2 provinces out of 9, and it's really going to be a not a very good side for us to not try and cover all provinces because of the strictness of the schedule of Parliament. But Chair, your office can really guide us. Even now, Chair, when we were on recess, we really had a long recess, but the office of the chair could have really asked the members to say, members, can we in this week go for oversight? So I plead with you, Chair, to look into the matter of oversight with this program that I agree upon or agree on. Any week would be fine. We would just tell the relevant people that would be presenting on the committee on that week to say, no, this week we're in Northwest. Instead of going to Cape Town, you are going to come to Northwest, or are going to have a virtual meeting. But I think if Chair, we can try and squeeze maybe one province for oversight in this quarter. That would be my plea, Chair. But apart from that, I am fine with the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Hlongo. Honorable Likaraba, followed by Honorable Mutli.
Thank you very much, Chair. I second the proposed a program together with the input made by Honorable Hlongo.
Thank you, Honorable Likaraba. Honorable Mutli.
I'm covered, Chair, exactly what they're saying. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Mutli. Indeed, Disang, we should be trying to add, as per the proposal by Honorable Hlongo, try and put in, another province, because, in today, as you've heard, that we are forming part of those oversight, performance plan of the 7th Parliament. And we've not had a lot of opportunity to go to oversight, because it seems as if whenever we have requested that, this oversight have been declined. And we have, of course, requested in time, but it has been declined. So if we could put in one of the provinces where we were supposed to go, and then due to floods we couldn't go, which is Mpumalanga and Limpopo, if we could go to one of those ones, then, or if we go there for a whole week, then maybe we could do some of Mpumalanga and some of Limpopo. Those 2 provinces are next to each other, so that at least we are able to say that we have visited some of the projects there, as well as in future to go to the Eastern Cape, because they seem to have also the bulk of the projects, so that we are able to go and do oversight on these projects. Because as you could see here today, Lookout Hill is on completion. But we were at Lookout Hill and we saw a whole mess ourselves. So I'm wondering, what money was spent, where was that money spent for a project to be in that state? But here we are told there was a handover of that project. So it's best for us to go to the ground, so that we don't just receive glossy reports, but that we go and verify the facts on the ground, with these reports that we have received. So let's put the Mpumalanga and Limpopo, so that we do one of those ones in the end of, is it the end of August? Must just not be on the 23rd. 23rd, I'm traveling. I'm not going to be around on the 23rd of August. But with that said, honorable members, we also, you'll see on the agenda, we've put there minutes, but we have not sent through the minutes. It was an oversight from our side. We will then do those minutes next week. We'll do those minutes next week. Oh, I see Honorable Hlonga is saying fine. We will now close our meeting. Honorable members, we will close our meeting, and we will then just wait for the minister. She said she will give us the report in writing. She will respond to us in writing, and then as soon as the SANG receive from the minister, we will then share it. It's just that I did not even see the minister's hand up. That's why I always ask the SANG and the team to assist. So we will then share, the interaction from minister with either the honorable members or whether it was DBSA. And then we will then duly respond from our side. Thank you, honorable members. We will then release all of you. You must have a blessed week ahead, and we will then see each other next week.
Thank you, Chair.
Tuesday.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair. And
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Chair. Thank you, colleagues. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.